All right, and we're live. Got 2/3 of the Burgundy Zone today. Two mics for the price of none, fellas. How are you today?
Good, man. You got the Burgundy Zone JV team in here right
Yes,
now.
sir.
The
Listen,
one
I'm
A-list
excited.
is
I'm
not
excited.
here.
The other guy, he's all right and everything. We'll allow you. You guys can talk about him the way you do freely while he's around. Just he's
Right.
not around. It's
Yeah. He kind of sucks, to be honest with you. No, he's cool.
He's probably
He's
watching,
right
so it's
now.
all good.
Yeah.
He'll hear.
How long you guys been at the podcast now?
Oh my God. Me and
Man.
Kyle started doing that in 2017, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And then let's see, I took over whenever Reed had to like step away for a little bit, do his thing. And me and Kyle, I was working with Kyle like as his helper at the same job, the same company we work at. And we were talking ball 24/7. And basically one day he was just like, "Yo, man, you want to just like get on and like record an episode?" And I was just like, "Eh." But ever since that day, been doing it. So I guess that was like 2018, 2019, somewhere around there.
And it's always been YouTube, or it was just on audio platforms at first?
At first we used something seed. It was some weird website that Buzzsprout. Something seed. Yeah, no. We used Buzzsprout, and then we put it on Facebook. We would always go live on Facebook and YouTube. But dude, the old episodes are so bad. It's so funny because I was trying so hard. I was listening to a lot of Joe Rogan, and I was like, oh, I can talk about anything, and I just bring up random stuff, and Kyle would be like, "What are you talking about? What are we doing here?" And I'd be like, "Come on, man, it's a podcast." It was so bad.
How long did it take, do you think, before you really started getting where you are now with views and like a good, people that follow know when the shows are coming? And how long do you think it took from the first episode to the point where it's like, oh wow, it's kind of cool?
That was like during the pandemic, right? That was like when we had
Yeah.
Morgan on and stuff. Morgan
Yeah, I'd
Moses
say
was
probably
like,
probably around like 2020. The pandemic is obviously nothing else to do really, nothing better to do.
Yeah.
And like Reed said, we ended up getting Morgan Moses on somehow, some way, and chopped it up with him, and then from there, kind of just like, I guess, slowly but surely took off, and here we are today.
Yeah.
2 shows a week. Had you ever thought about doing more or less? How did you how did you decide on the days that you are at now, and how many of them?
So much trial and error. We used to do so much random times and random days. And then I could barely even make it twice a week, dog. You know what I'm saying? So it's struggling balancing that life. But yeah, I mean, we just we settled on Mondays and Thursdays, and because that just kind of worked best. We didn't have anything to do because I work a lot during the weekends too. So like Fridays and Saturdays were kind of off limits. But really, I mean, Hall and Kyle are like, they get off work super early, don't you guys? Like we used to record at like 3.
Yeah, luckily, I mean, we get up at like we got to be there at like 6. Well, Kyle got to be there earlier. I got to be there at the office at like 6, and I get off at like 2:30 every day, unless I gotta like stay late, maybe like 4 or 5 o'clock the latest. So anytime after like 6:30 is always the best for me. And like you said, Kyle, he's home earlier than me because he's out in the field doing whatever. So
well, he's also been faking his job for a long
we
time.
basically we just live our lives around Reed. So
Yeah, I make sure I try to pull a main character type move, and I try to make their days revolve around me. So I'm like, we got to start later, dude. Sorry. Sometimes I just don't text and just don't show up. And then Kyle's like, why'd you do that? I'm like, wanted to. So I just make sure that we get that A-list treatment. Got to keep him on his toes a little bit.
Now, Reed, you got the Nationals jersey on. Had you guys considered doing baseball in the off season?
Yeah, so we when it started, we used to do all DC sports. Right. We used to do a lot of Nats and a lot of Wizards too, and some Caps. But I'll be honest, I don't know too much about the Caps, so I wasn't really contributing to any of those. But that was J-Mo, chill. But we just kind of settled on the Commanders because that was what we wanted to talk about 99% of the time. But every once in a while, I'll throw into a guest some Nationals questions, something like that. Try to talk about them if something's going on, like with the whole drafting of Dylan Cruz and stuff. I definitely always make sure that I touch on that. But I think right now we're just kind of sticking strictly Commanders. That's kind of the way that we've been branded. That's the best. And plus, whether people want to admit it or not, man, that's the best team in town. This is a football town. I don't care what anybody says. DC's. I mean, once the Commanders are good, it's game over. It's not even going to be close. So.
And it looks like they're heading in the right direction Hall, I'm curious from the time that they said there'd be new ownership to the time that, new owners on Monday Night Football, half lit in the second half, second quarter. Like, what have your thoughts been about the new guy? Because he's done everything
Yeah,
right so far.
yeah. I haven't seen anything other than the awkward handshake, which I loved. I mean, everyone was like making a big deal about it, which is a good thing. Like I know the social media team put it on on Twitter or X, whatever they were calling it nowadays. So that just goes to show that like he's aware of it. He's kind of poking fun of himself, and like I said, just from hearing all the buy damn parties at the bullpen and out at Old Brock's Brewery in Virginia. He calls in to Grant and Danny and like orders everyone a beer out there. So it's just been nothing but positive things. You've seen the upgrades he's made at the stadium. He's around. He's being seen. Unlike the last guy, he's talking to the media. He's talking, like you said, to Aikman and Buck up in the booth on Monday night. So I'm excited from where it started to where it's been now. It's been exciting, and excited to see where it goes from here.
Reed, it's interesting when the news was dropped. I've said this a couple times on the show. Like, I really thought it'd be one of those dancing in the street moments. It really wasn't that. I think I was more excited with the new owner than I was when the old guy got the boot. In retrospect, I think I'm surprised by that. What were your emotions through the two different kind of short time frames?
At first I didn't want to believe. At first, not that I didn't want to believe it, but like I wouldn't let myself believe it. I was like, there's no, even with everything going on. But then I had to talk myself into it because I was like, I also forever was saying that there's no possible way he'll change the name from Redskins. And that used to be like my crutch. I'd be like, well, Snyder, the one good thing about him, his one redeeming quality is he'll never change the name. And then they changed the name. So I was like, okay, I guess he'll do anything. I don't know. But I'm nervous, but Josh Harris seems like a cool dude. Like, I don't know. There's just something about him. It seems like he's really invested more so than obviously, I don't know what he did when he bought the Sixers or any of that stuff, but this seems a little bit different because he was a fan. I will say he does look like he dresses at the Fashion Bug. He looks like he shops at Fashion Bug. And I like that. I feel like he spent every last time that he had. And he was just in the booth. He was like, can you guys spot me $10? Because
they brought up the money and he was like, come on, don't talk about the money.
Yeah, I know. He said that. And I was like, God, don't say that, dude. Come on.
That's why the handshake was so long. Joe Buck was actually sliding $10. Like, hey, man, it's on me.
Josh Harris does seem like a surfer bro or something, the way he talks.
You gotta love the fact that he got no shirt and tie, polo on, ready to go. Cool. I loved it. You could tell they had a couple of BLs before the game started.
Right.
Why wouldn't you? First game at home. I mean, come on, it's his house.
Troy Aikman looked at him and started laughing when he did the handshake. That was so funny.
It was great.
Troy.
And respect, the crazy thing is too, I mean, the guy before him was the fan of the team, right?
And, I know.
It's like I always think about Dan, and listen, I'm not going to be feeling bad about Dan and all the money he made and how poorly he treated people. But imagine buying your favorite football team and just running it into the ground.
I know.
And it's supposed to be so impossible to do that.
Yeah, that used to be the thing. It was like, well, Dan Snyder bought it as a fan. You can't buy a team as a fan because you're going to treat it like it's Madden, and that's what he did. And that's why I was nervous at first about Josh Harris. I was like, oh man, he did grow up in the area. He is a fan, but there's two ways that can go. It can either be a really good thing, and that's what we're hoping for, or it can be a terrible thing, and you can get somebody like that goddamn devil Dan Snyder that was just here. But yeah.
Well, he's got no football owning experience, but I do think that having ownership stakes in two other professional franchises gives you a leg up on those, like the Waltons that just bought the Broncos. Like, are they super wealthy? Yes. Did they ever own a team before? No. So I do think that this is important that he's got some, history with other franchises.
Yeah, and just another like kind of tidbit to that, he was a minority partner with the Steelers, so one of the most top pillar NFL franchises in history, and one of the best run organizations in the NFL. So he got to kind of see behind the scenes to see how they do it. So hopefully he brings some of that down here as well.
It's interesting. The last 3 franchises that have sold, the owners all had stake in the Steelers first. It's like
really
the Steelers apparently are a springboard, to ownership.
Yeah.
Andy Reid has the coaching tree. The Rooney's got the ownership tree.
Right. Yeah. They're the real America's team, Dallas. You hear that? They were supposed to be built America's team, weren't they? That was like originally supposed to be a Steelers thing, and Steelers were like, we're Pittsburgh's team. We're not America's team. Then the Cowboys were like, We'll
We'll
be
take it.
America's team.
They're
Come on.
riding
They
it ever
got-
since.
There are a lot of people that have the Cowboys as the favorites to lead the NFL in wins this year. I'm not trying to be an anti like a homer, but
Yeah.
like I think the big book that Santa put out had him at like 14 wins or something crazy. It's
Right.
ridiculous. I don't get it.
No, I've never been like when the Cowboys are good, like they're going to be good. We can all agree on that. I mean, they
roster's
got a
good.
good roster, right? Are they the best team in the NFL? No, they're not the best team in the NFC. They're not the best team in our division. I mean, one thing goes wrong with Dak, that team's not the same. And like I don't want to, like you said, I don't want to sound like I'm hating or anything. It's just like I don't know. They don't really scare you like the Eagles do. They don't strike that fear. Even the Giants often, just with the way Daniel Jones plays against us, sometimes that scares me going into the game more so than Dallas's offense right now. You know, I don't know.
Hall,
Yeah.
where do you have Dak ranked in the division?
Dak ranked in the division. I'd probably put him 2 behind Jalen Hurts. I mean, obviously Dak has the resume, a little bit bigger, longer resume than Jalen Hurts right now, but you could say Jalen Hurts in shorter time has done more with his career as far as getting to a Super Bowl and whatnot, even getting to an NFC Championship, to be honest with you, with his team and leading them, and then obviously getting to the Super Bowl playing lights out as opposed to a guy like Dak Prescott who has he's good, pretty good in the regular season, has elite moments in the regular season, but seems to get to the playoffs and gets to that second round and kind of, I guess, crumbles under the lights, so to say. So I will go with Dak as number 2. I know a lot of people have Daniel Jones and thinking he's going to be like a sleeper for the MVP and like he's ascending. I've always been a guy that like not with like Daniel Jones or the Giants or anybody like that, but like quarterbacks for my team, I'm like I'm going to be optimistic because they're on my team, and I've kind of taking the approach even with Sam Howell this year where you got to like see it more and more, and you got to like kind of prove it to me type thing. So Daniel Jones, yes, he had a good year last year, but if he proves it to me again this year that he can improve in the passing game and then add to the running game as well, and they take that next step and become one of those like I guess tier 1 if you want to call them teams in the NFC, then honestly I might ascend Daniel Jones above Dak Prescott if he can make some noise in the playoffs as well. So yeah, but to answer your question, I got Dak at 2 right now.
Did you see this from Hurts before he got drafted? Were you a fan of his coming out?
I was actually not really because he was at Alabama, to be honest with you. And at that time, I was just like so anti-Alabama because they were just always winning. But after he got benched and then just to show like you heard all the reports how he was boosting up Tua and helping out Tua, even when you saw him on the sidelines, I became a fan of his. And then he went to Oklahoma, and I'm a fan of
Lincoln Riley.
I was gonna say, I just slipped my mind. I'm a huge fan of Lincoln Riley and what he does offensive wise. So I rooted for him at Oklahoma, and yeah, obviously he went to the Eagles, and I was kind of blown about that because I would know I was gonna have to like be a rival to him, but I still cheer for him. I'm definitely a fan of his game, but I'm not gonna lie, didn't see all this coming as far as like him ascending to this level. Like I knew he was the running quarterback, like running wise, like he could do it at an NFL level just because he did it in college. But passing wise, I didn't know if it was Lincoln Riley's scheme and like the talent around him that was just making him explode on the scene passing wise. But and even the first couple of years in the NFL, it was kind of like, but he was slowly but surely taking those steps. And then just like a lot of young quarterbacks, you get him a number 1 receiver like in AJ Brown. Now he explodes onto the scene. So kudos to him for sure. I mean, hopefully a guy like Sam Howell on our team, a guy like Terry McLaurin, his number 1 receiver, can make that huge leap onto the team as well.
You mentioned the weapons for the Eagles, Reed. I'm curious, where do our wide receivers, the duo, the trio, rank in the division?
So I think there's 2 ways to look at it. One, you can look at the production that has already happened, and you can look at the Eagles and be like, look, Devontae Smith, former first-round pick. We know how talented he is. A.J. Brown, as you mentioned. A.J. Brown's a stud. And then you look at the Cowboys. Cowboys have fantastic wide receivers. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's a stud. Everybody's expecting a lot from him. And he produced last year. I mean, even Brandon Cooks. He's been decent everywhere he's went. I mean,
I keep forgetting that he's on the Cowboys.
I know, so do I. Right.
He's like sneakily had like a couple like 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, 1,000 yards like seasons in a row. Like
remember, he used to change teams every offseason.
Yeah.
But so you can look at it like that and be like, these guys, they're all established. we have Terry McLaurin, who's very well established. I think he's still climbing. Obviously, Curtis Samuel, people know how dangerous he is. And then Jahan Dotson, who I mean, look, I don't think this is necessarily going to happen, but he has been Sam Howell's favorite target so far early on. And a lot of people think that he is talented enough to be 1A with Terry as a wide receiver. So I think you look at our top three is number one in the division. I don't care what anybody says. I would take our three over the Eagles three, but maybe the Eagles duo you'll say is probably better than our top two right now, which is what it is. Yeah. Cowboys, I can understand why people would make that argument as well. I would personally take Jahan over Brandon Cooks, but what do I know? But I'd say as a trio, as a whole, I'm taking our wide receiver core all day. Number one in the division. I don't care.
It's wild because it feels like just 2 years ago it was the worst division in the league.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd suggest that maybe outside of the AFC West and maybe, like a couple of the North, like the AFC North, we've got the best division of football now. It's wild. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I really think from top to bottom, it's a good division.
That's the thing. You kind of see that like every year, every couple of years. It's like these divisions. Everybody thought the NFC West or the AFC West last year. Everybody thought the Broncos were going to be contending right there. That they were going to be studs, and they were like, that division is just straight up loaded. It's insane. And then us kind of coming off of a down year, our division, and then all of a sudden we have probably the best division in football, and it's weird just how it fluctuates like that. So I'm wondering like, within the coming years, like is the NFC or is the AFC South going to take over? NFC South's all the way down, but are those teams going to, I don't know, get some good draft picks? All of a sudden, all four of them are in the playoff race. It's weird.
Which again, that's how the league is built, not to be like a 20-year loser.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
That we've been rooting for.
Yeah, not to be like
again, to run your favorite team into the ground is supposed to be impossible. To lose for 20 years, it's supposed to be impossible. They literally have built the thing so that doesn't happen. We're talking about the Giants and the rise they made. It shows you how important coaching is. Paul, I'm curious, like from the time Ron's gotten here till now, were you a fan when he got here? Are you a fan still? Have you become a fan if you weren't when he got here? I'm curious what your thoughts on Ron in year 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like everybody I'm sure not everyone, but I'm sure a lot of the fan base was at the time when he got hired a huge fan of the hire because of all the reports swirling around like Club J and how things weren't really that serious over there. So it felt like you were getting an adult into the room that was going to kind of straighten the ship and make things steady. And then obviously all the off the field stuff hits, and he had some personal stuff hit off the field. And like I said, I was already a fan of his just because obviously you watch what he does in Carolina and what he was like, how consistent the defense was there, and how of a hard-nosed team they were. And like, they were never really like a team that got blown out. They're always always a team that would fight to the end of the game. And obviously you got Cam Newton there, so that's a big part of it as well. And then you see that he gets to the Super Bowl. So you look at him and you're like, well, he's been to the Super Bowl in the past 10 years. Like we're trying to bring some of that. We're trying to bring some of that history here. So definitely, like at the time, I thought it was a good hire. Was a big fan of it. And then the whole cancer thing happens, and then they obviously in a down year they make the playoffs in 2020. And from there, I was like, okay, like we might have found like our coach for the next couple of years. Like, we're going to keep building. Obviously, you can. He has his faults, just like every head coach except maybe like Andy Reid isn't perfect. So you can definitely like ding him and give him some flack for a couple of things. But I'm still a fan now. If he happens to move on after this year, I'm still going to be a fan of his when he moves on, and whenever that may be. And I think that at the end of the day, there was no writer coach that could have been here to get us all through the storm that it was, the whole wildfire that was going on from 2020 up until just recently with this sale. So I'm happy that he was here. I'm happy that he stood by us and stood with this team. And I'm happy that the way that he's constructed the team for the most part, it's just that one position that hopefully we've got it answered. And yeah, I think that, like I said, you can ding him and you can kind of give him some flack for some things here and there. But I think overall he's done a decent job here, and I can definitely accept that.
Real fast, Rivera. It's weird. I remember signing Rivera in Madden back when he was defensive coordinator of the Chargers, and always trying to bring him in there because Chargers defense, it was good. I mean, he was around the league. He was very well respected. But one thing I'll never forget, and it was kind of true, is when we hired Rivera, I was talking to my friend who was a Ravens fan, which Sorry, Ravens. Don't know what to tell you. How's that loss feel, dude? You guys are on an 0-1 streak. Suck it. And
They're salty too.
yeah,
For a
they're
team
so
that didn't
salty,
care
dude.
about the
So
streak, they are
salty.
salty
Yeah,
about
they
that.
didn't care about the streak. They just brought it up before every preseason game, how impressive it was. But it was like, I was talking to my friend and I was like, well, he was like, well, you guys just signed a coach that was fired. And I was like, well, we brought him in to change the culture. And he was like, oh, because the Panthers are known for having such a good culture. And I was like, damn, that's kind of true. But shout out to Ron, did do a good job though. Ron, I think has done a fantastic. I don't think any other coach could have done this. So
No, I don't think so either. What does he got to do to keep his job, Reed?
ooh, make the playoffs, maybe even win a playoff game. Because I do think that like a coach like Ron isn't really like, he's more than just like, at this point, he's more than just like this is a coach that's on. It's like the players have such a good relationship with him. So many guys like Ron. Ron's very well respected around the league. You heard that when we signed him. Everybody that played for him was like, I love Ron Rivera. I would do anything for that guy. That guy's awesome. So it's kind of hard, but like, unfortunately, we've just been barely treading water, hovering around 500. And that's unfortunately the nature of the beast. It just doesn't get it done. You got a new owner. They're going to want to pull the plug. So, but if Ron goes out there and they win a playoff game, and then you're going to keep on marching ahead with Ron. But hey, even that might not be enough, depending on how quickly Josh Harris wants to reset.
It's interesting. And I agree with you. And I think a lot of people think the reset button's coming. I think you be careful what you ask for when you hit that reset button, because change can be crazy. And you know, just don't know what you got. You know what you got right now. I also wonder, and I was thinking about this last week, it's been this coach-centric thing with Ron, which I never thought was a great idea. To Hall's point, he's had more things to go through than you'd ever imagine.
Yeah.
Now he's just the head coach, right? You go onto the website and you'll notice he's not the VP of football ops or whatever it was that he was before. He's just head coach now. I wonder if the vibe in the building will be better with him just focusing on that and not having to worry about all the other duties. And now that EB's in and they're totally invested in that, it feels like things are changing. If Hal can compete, I wonder if that's a good enough bump for the new owner. Because my understanding is if you spend time around Ron, you'll get addicted to Ron. Like that's the kind of guy he is. So I wonder if they can do that. That if maybe getting to 9 wins in a really tough division,
right?
Like say that's not good enough. Say 10 wins isn't good enough to get you in the playoffs because of how tough the division is. I wonder if just being around Ron and a full year of him just being head coach will make a huge difference.
Right, and that's 100% true. I think that like if you're in Ron's corner and you want Ron to stay here and continue building, then I think that that's probably a very good thing that Josh Harris has been so involved lately and like been going to every game. He's in the locker rooms. He's always at the practice. He's at training camp, obviously bringing people in, just getting to know people, building a relationship with these guys. It's super interesting, I think. So yeah, I do think maybe he can see through all that. But the other part is, does Ron even want to stay right now? I mean, of course, I think he wants to stay in the organization, do something with football. And that's long been rumored, but like, does he want to continue coaching? Because it looks like they're kind of trying to get EB more and more responsibility. They're kind of letting him do his thing and show off. So I don't know. It's interesting.
This comment from Freddie is interesting. I had Mark Bullock on the show. It was a couple years ago now. And I was asking about, the difference between having a team that is based off of a head coach that is defensive minded or offensive minded. And basically it's this point right here. It's tough to do defense anymore because if your team wins and you score over 23 points, you're going to lose your offensive coordinator every year.
Right. Yeah.
Much better to lose a defensive coordinator and replace him on a good offensive minded team than to be having to restart the offensive coordinator every year. So I will say, I do think that's an interesting one and a tough one. I think that's how it works.
Right. For sure. There's also some guys though, like, I mean, you even look at Nathaniel Hackett, like what a joke he was last year, but that experience, even Matt Nagy back in like that experience that they have as head coaches, them they get fired and being able to bring them in, that they're talented offensive coordinators, that they know how to make a game plan, how to call plays. So that's the other side of it. Like it seems like it's a constant revolving door, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely something you got to consider, man. If EB goes out there, all of a sudden he's getting head coaching offers and then what?
I was thinking about this the other day because forget who asked it on Twitter, but my my response to that was, like, yeah, if the offense is good, obviously Eric Bieniemy is going to get coaching looks, and my sentiment would be that if it's Ron's first winning season here, why would he want to move on from being the coach? You know what I'm saying? Like, other than being released or let go of being the coach, So he's going to want to at least play out his last year of his contract, because this will be year 4 or 5. Going to next year, like, look, let me play my last year out, see if I can repeat a back-to-back winning season for God knows how long. I don't even think I've been alive to the head of a winning back-to-back winning season. So, and then Eric Bieniemy will move on to obviously be a head coach more than likely if the offense is humming, top half of the league. Sam Howell develops. My only thought that to keep Sam Howell from like maybe his third offense in 3 years would be maybe you elevate a guy like Tavita Pritchard, who's the quarterback coach working with Eric Bieniemy, who would hopefully carry the system over and keep on tutoring Sam Howell to keep the continuity.
And that'll be the interesting thing, and that's why I wanted to put this next one up by Freddie, because
to
your point, Hall, it'll be tough, right? If Ron, I've heard all this thing like Ron can move into a different role in the organization and let EB do that. Well, if they win, to your point, Hall, why on earth is he stepping down?
Exactly.
If he's got the thing rolling. The other thing about EB is, even if they come out, first of all, last year, I have to say this over and over again because I just find it incredible. The team didn't score 19 points a game last year. So, like, all EB's got to do is get them to league average, and they should be able to repeat at least the win total. That's why I think the 6.5 from Vegas is insane.
Yeah.
Hammer the over.
Hammer the over. I mean, it feels like free money. Right. But as far as EB goes, I know he'll want a shot. But again, you be careful what you ask for. Guys like Jack Del Rio have found they're much better as coordinators. Yeah. And they like being coordinators better than the man with the show. Now, I'm sure EB'd like a chance to run the whole show. But just because he comes here and elevates the offense doesn't mean that he can be a head coach. Now, maybe he can. But that's yet to be found. So getting rid of Ron because you've had one good year of EB running an offense doesn't necessarily bode to be the best thing either. So, again, lots of options. I think they're all fascinating.
Yeah. And it's like obviously throughout from the Shanahan to the Jay Gruden era where we screwed up, obviously, like letting all those guys walk, because all those guys end up becoming head coaches, having various success and being good offensive minds. And it's like those guys, that's not going to happen again, where you have a Matt LaFleur, or you have even all those guys in the same room, Sean McVay, like everybody. It
just kept going all the way to
just like that's not going to happen again. So you gotta.
And Josh Harris, honestly,
that's good. Can't hold on to him.
Josh Harris obviously coming with the experience with owning other teams. He seems like a guy that he's a big analytics guy as well. So he'll listen to his guys. He's a guy that hires people and lets them do the job. So I feel like for the first time, even if there is some type of power structure change, for the first time in a very, very long time, I feel like there's going to be a GM that's hired, and that GM is going to work together with the owner to find the head coach. Like normal NFL processes usually go to other teams. And so I think that even if something were to happen as far as like a head coaching change, I think EB would get a first shot as far as like the interview goes. But I mean, again, it's an offensive league, so I would definitely, if it happened, I could definitely see them going to offensive route.
You mentioned bringing in the GM Hall, which is usually what happens. We did it opposite this last way because Ron kind of got that control. Yeah. But he brought in 2 GMs. I'm going to see if I can't find this real quickly. But I saw earlier the draft class. I guess what I was trying to get to, I can't find it. I'm not going to waste time looking for it. But like, there's a chance that the draft class from last year will all be productive starters.
Oh, yeah.
Like every one of them, all the way down to Christian Holmes with the very last pick. The one before that, we're talking about the Cam Curl, the Derek Forrest drafts the year before. So it's like at the same time, I wonder if those draft classes pan out again. If Ron's getting the first interview, I mean, if I'm Ron, I'm saying, well, listen, you saw how shitty it was the whole time, as we've discussed.
Right.
The draft classes have not been bad. They've actually been pretty good. We found a lot of late round gems. We've missed on a couple picks, obviously. I don't think that they're going to find that Jamin Davis pick is going to pan out, but every team misses.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think that's where I would start is look at what we've done since we've gotten here. I have GMs in place. We don't need to go out and do that. I'm curious how Josh Harris will look at the way the team has progressed since Ron got here and how much of a factor of not being able to find the quarterback was, because they've tried. And
Right.
to me, that's been their biggest downfall, right? Is
Oh, yeah.
quarterback.
Oh,
Like
100%,
Ron said,
100%.
instead of Jim and Davis, they should have sent the extra pick and gone up for Justin Fields and at least attempted to fix your quarterback problem. To me, that was, I've said this a bunch, that was his biggest mistake since he's been here, was
Right.
that draft. Not for not trying, because he's tried. They just
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
got it. Now,
Right.
if Sam hits this year, then again, Ron's going back to the other saying, listen, man, we've got
Yeah.
this thing rolling.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. Remember the last two drafts, the last two first round picks, everybody was upset that we took Emmanuel Forbes. A lot of people didn't necessarily see that coming. They thought it was too high. Same with Jahan Dotson. That was the exact same thing. People had him borderline second round pick. So the fact that, I mean, jury's still out on Emmanuel Forbes. We don't know. Still out on Jahan Dotson, technically. He could never be healthy. But like the fact that you're seeing, like, these guys know what they're doing. Like they're picking these guys that not the media, all these people don't necessarily seem high on, and they're getting production out of them, and they're becoming cornerstone players. If that ends up being the case, that's going to bode well. But of course, you hit on Sam Howell. All of a sudden, it doesn't matter really what else happens, because all of a sudden you got a franchise quarterback in the 5th round. How often does that happen? So,
And Reed, you said it earlier, and I think it's big, and maybe it's the biggest detriment to Rivera keeping his job if EB doesn't want to be around for another assistant head coach year, is that if Sam Howell is productive this year and looks like a franchise guy, in any way to have to make him move into another offense, to your point,
yeah,
is just trashing a kid that you're hoping is going to be really good. And you don't have the extra 5th-year option on him, right? Like if he's good this year, you got to consider paying him
Yep.
right.
sooner than later, because you don't have, like, the unfortunate thing is you're not going to get very much of that beautiful rookie contract that you think you're getting with Hal, because you didn't get him in the first year. You don't get the extra 5th year. You're going to play him
Right.
this year. You'll have to pay him soon. Not that you
And
wouldn't be happy to pay him if he's good.
Mhm.
If he has success next or this year and next year, all of a sudden you're looking at, all right, we got to re-sign him ASAP. We got to shell out the money. So super interesting. It would be a great situation to be in. We haven't been in that situation since Kirk. So let's just hope that we don't go to franchise tag Sam Howell every offseason if he pans out.
The other thing I'm fascinated about this offseason, I guess it's not going to happen anymore. I guess it could still. But to me, the curious case of Cameron Curl is, what do you pay him?
Right.
Got to pay him. And here's the interesting thing, right? So here's how I assume negotiations will go when it's time. His representatives go and say, hey, listen, the defense stinks when he's not on the field. The football team doesn't win football games when he's not on the field. Pay us. And the Commanders will say, he hasn't had a turnover since his rookie year. We don't want to pay him top 10 safety money for guys that are usually free safeties turning the ball over. So here's the 10th. I've said this on the show a couple of times. I'll ask you guys. The 10th highest paid safety is Marcus Williams for the Ravens. He got a deal last year, 5-year, I think 72, call it 50 something guaranteed. It's like $15 million a year. Is that where we're at with Cam Curl? 5 years, $70 million for Cam Curl?
I'd say yes, because of what you just laid out. And if you look at the numbers when he's in the game, the the rushing yards for the offense or the opposing offense goes up. The passing yards for the opposing offense goes up. The yards per carry, per catch, all that, the points per game for the offense goes up. When he's on the field, yes, he hasn't had the turnovers, you're right. And that's going to be definitely a ding, or they're going to try to put that in a feather for the negotiations. But if I'm his agent, my rebuttal would be, I'm not making the turnovers because I'm moving around so many spots on the field. I'm doing so many different things that I'm not in that position consistently to make a play on the ball, because most of the time I'm up in the box in the run game. I'm getting active in the passing game as well, yes, but he's a guy that's around the box. He's going to make tackles in the box. He's going to play those crossers, the tight ends as well. So I definitely think he's worth the money. I definitely think that if you listen to Ron, if you try to like read the tea leaves, I think they're behind the scenes talking about that type of stuff. And it's just a matter of Josh Harris getting settled in, getting his people around that he wants as far as like the operation with the money side, like the business side, the contract side goes, that he feels comfortable with. and I think they'll go from there. And I definitely think that again, Josh Harris is an analytics guy, and if you look at the analytics, that favors Cam Curl. So if he's smart, and I think he is a very smart owner, so far so good. I think that they'll end up getting the deal done at some point.
But the flip side to that, though, would be, and I think we should pay Cam. I think so. We're huge Cam guys over on the Burgundy Zone. We got Greg on all the time. Greg's our boy. We've had Cam on multiple times. They're both awesome people. We think that they deserve the world. But the Commanders could come back and be like, if this is what you want to get paid, go see if somebody will pay you that. And
That's
apparently
true.
the rest of the league isn't that high on Cam. Allegedly, that's at least according to the PFF and all these guys that are just out there fucking writing articles, ranking safeties, leaving Cam even off the honorable mention list. They'll be like, if you think you can get that, go get it. Go get your bag, and then come back to us if with whatever happens. So that'll be interesting, but they can't let Cam walk. Come on, and that's why I hope he has a big year this year with turnovers, because I just want this debate settled, and I just want him to stay here, stay with us.
And maybe with new ownership, they'll get it done this month. There's no reason that they can't. I mean, they could easily pay him if they want to. And of course, the one thing that we always know is $15 million a year this year means nothing in 2 years from now, halfway through his contract. That's right, when he'll be the 20.
Exactly.
So I hope they get it worked out. Of course, I'm a huge Cam Curl fan too, and Greg Stokes. I mean, obviously, but they're conversations that have to be had. I mean, it's a business still in the end. I am curious how they'll do it. Reports came out today, I think Standig had it, that Ron is considering, or at least mulling, rotating left guard, or the left guards a la right tackle from last year. I still say I have never in my life seen it. I don't want to see it again this year. It sounds ridiculous. Pick a guy and play him. If you don't have one good enough, that's your fault. Still got to pick a guy and play him. Those reps are... There may not be anything more important on a football team than the reps you get together, the cohesion that you form.
Especially young guys, inexperienced guys.
That's right. And the guys at left guard don't have any experience. So I'm stunned by this idea. I can't imagine either of you think it's a good idea.
That was when I saw that earlier, it was Standig that put it out there on the X. And my first thought was, okay, this is probably Ron doing his whole coach speak thing again, because he loves to get up there and just do the whole coach speak, the whole coach talk to the media. So I kind of tried to like just read between the lines, but it still just irked me that I'm like, first of all, you tried it with Cosme last year and you saw how that turned out. You stuck him at one position and say, hey, stick there, learn that position. But like you said, the offensive line, this is what I said, like the offensive line is like one of those positions where consistency with 5 guys is the most paramount thing. If those guys gelling, learning how to play off blocks with each other, learning how to read off each other, just being next to the guy, consistently getting those reps is one of the biggest, most important things with an offensive line. Some of the best offensive lines in the league are obviously the ones that are consistently together on the field all the time. So for him to be switching and flip-flopping this guy, that guy, you get a series here, I understand you're still trying to work the whole, we don't know who the starter wants to be, but like you said, just pick a guy, stick with him. If he can't get it done, go to the next guy. I don't want to see, all right, like you said, you get a series, Paul. All right, now Paul or Charles, you get a series here. Like, no, stick with a guy, roll with him, and see what happens.
Ron's playing chess. Well, these guys are playing checkers. People say Ron's not innovative. Come on, man. Come on. Bringing it back to high school.
When we're the leaders of the new shit, I get worried.
It's just such a weird concept. It's so weird. I always thought that was weird.
Cosme, like imagine if they had just put Cosme at right guard the whole
exactly. He might be approaching. He could be approaching like that Pro Bowl, All Pro level if he was just consistently getting better at his craft at guard.
That's so funny. Ron's just 18 steps ahead of everybody in his mind, but in reality, he's I don't know what 15, 20 years behind when it comes to that. But shout out Ron. Ron's a good guy. Love Ron.
If offensive guard isn't the biggest question mark, then I think right behind it is who plays opposite the boundary from Forbes. Who do you think it ends up being, Reed?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So I feel like by November, somebody tweeted this out when Kendall Fuller got burned against the Ravens, and they're like, "We all know Kendall didn't really show up until November. Calm down." And it's so true. Like by the end of the year, Kendall will be balling. But no, I do think that it's interesting that they've had Benjamin St. Juste in the slot. Like when Kendall Fuller was here the first time. And I know he's not the same guy anymore, but he was the best slot corner in the NFL for a couple of years. It's interesting to me, but I think that they'll put Kendall out there but it's not like that means Benjamin St. Juste isn't going to be on the field. He's going to be on the field all the time. He still is. So it's going to be interesting, man. I think Kendall will get the first crack at that, but I would not be surprised at all if Benjamin St. Juste very early starts going out there and following around some guys, just because it might depend on the matchup, but like his length and like his athleticism, it's so rare, man. That's not something that you see in a cornerback. So, and the fact that he's Canadian, that's not something that you see in anybody. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Is that a knock or is that a pro?
We're yet to see.
For,
when it comes to music, it's a good thing. When it comes to Jersey Drake, it's a great thing. You know, when it comes to rap, it's a good thing. But maybe shout out
Are
Benjamin
you
St.
suggesting that Benjamin St. Juste is the Drake of quarterbacks?
Yes, he's been messaging Millie Bobby Brown all week. Yes, hopefully he puts out some hits. You know what I'm saying?
Paul, if this team doesn't get to where they're hoping to go this year, why?
I said this on the podcast the other day because there was a whole conversation about Ron. And if you go back to Ron's opening press conference, one of his quotes was, "We got to study this history. We got to repeat this history." And the offensive line has deteriorated. And the history of this team obviously is the Hogs' offensive line. So to answer your question, if they don't get where they want to go this year, it's going to be in the trenches. It's going to start with the offensive line, and it's going to be another year of just like last year when he brought in Norwell and Trey Turner, didn't work out for him. It'll be another year of, hey, we're going to bring in Nick Gates, we're going to bring in Wiley, we're going to push Cosme inside. It didn't work out for us, and I think as much faith as we have in Sam Howell, and we think that the list of problems, Sam Howell's not at the top of the list, or even the first couple problems on that with the team as far as like the negatives of the team. I think that offensive line is at the top of that list, and if they can gel together and not flip-flop guys at left guard and become a unit, I think that the sky's the limit for this team because we have the defense, we have the weapons, and we have hopefully an ascending quarterback. But if the line can't gel and there's some injuries and they're just always rotating guys around and they don't find the right combination, I think that Vegas might be somewhat close to the win total, around 6.5.
Reed, when the season's over, what will they have had to have done for you to say that was a good season?
So I'm such like a homer. Like even the last few years, I'll look back and I'll be like, hey, they finished with 7 wins. They were doing some things out there. We almost won 3 games, dude. We knocked those up at wins. All of a sudden we're at 10. We got this. Sometimes the ball just goes a different way, but I think honestly, and look, this is gonna sound cliche, but like if Sam Howell is the guy, if we finally have our quarterback, then it's gonna be like a whole new level of excitement. It's gonna be like, all right, well, regardless what our record is, Sam Howell's the guy right now, and that's at least exciting. We can build around that because even with the offensive line, like in today's NFL, it's weird because obviously the offensive line is important, very important. But you've seen teams with good quarterbacks get Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They were still winning it. I'm not saying, actually, I am. Sam Howell's Joe Burrow. Sam Howell is Joe Burrow. So, but like
Joe
you've seen this,
Sam Howell.
Yeah, that's true. You've seen this time and time again, and like if you got that quarterback, you always have a chance in these games. But that's like top-notch success. If we get that, that's huge. But for this season to be a success, we got to make the playoffs because we know what talent we have. We know that we do. So basically, if Ron's staying, it was a successful season. If Ron gets fired, it's like, all right, the season was a bust. Next, bring somebody else in here. You know,
they damn sure can't afford to get off to a typical Ron start.
No, not at all. Yeah,
no,
dude, it's even like that in games. It's like the first half sucks.
No matter what, do you think he gets the year no matter what? Like if they get off to a typical Ron start and they're like 1-3. Because take a look at the schedule. It's not an easy schedule.
It's after Arizona. After Arizona, which again, I know it's Arizona, but look, we've seen Colt McCoy come in and have like a Colt McCoy hero of Texas type game.
That would be the most Washington thing ever.
I know that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, pump your brakes. Like we should beat them, but it's Colt McCoy. Like anything can happen. But to answer your question, what was the question again?
I don't know. You lost me. I was into it to how you were trying to get to
I
describe.
know I lost my
that
train
we
of
did
thought.
Colt
I lost my
McCoy.
train
I
of
was like,
thought.
oh Lord, if Colt McCoy beats us, then Ron needs to be fired
All
right
of a sudden,
away.
got
I
a
said,
sinking.
will
Does Ron get the full season? Yeah. Does Ron get the full season? I think that, like you said, it's a murderous road the first quarter, that first month of the season. But if they start off slow, I'll give them till like week 6, that Atlanta game. If they can somehow get through the first 4 games, get the Thursday night football against Chicago, and then turn around and beat Atlanta in week 6, and they somehow at 3-3 at the break, or even 4-2 somehow, so they get a sneaky win in Denver or something like that. I definitely think that that's a good thing. But if they're started off 1-5 and they lose to Chicago, they lose to Atlanta, they've only beaten Arizona. Maybe it's the defense that's not holding up their end of the game. They're part of the bargain. Maybe he does get fired because the offense is kind of, you can see they're taking the steps. So maybe that's when they elevate EB. But I think Josh Harris is a smart enough guy that he'll at least give him till the bye week to be like evaluate everything. Well, he was a late bye week. I just feel like, I think for the most part Ron gets a full season. But if they do start off slow, there's not a good season to get to the bye week, I think they let him go then. Maybe elevate EB, see if he can get a look at a head coaching position, see how he does to finish the season out. But I don't think that a slow start is the chopping block for Ron, but it's definitely, the seat is definitely warming up if that happens.
You said pound the over on the season win total. Where do you think they end up at home?
It comes with a caveat.
I looked at the schedule again the
I
other
know.
day. It's kind of tough to get to 9. I mean,
I know.
I've been looking at that thing, like thinking, well, we got to 8 last year and we didn't score any points at all. But the schedule's kind of rough.
The schedule's rough, but again, if you want to, the flip side of that, you look at the schedule last year, you think, oh, this could easily be a 10-win team and it turns out it was one of the hardest schedules in the NFL just based off the NFC and how they played. So, or the NFC East and how they played. So, schedule can go either way, but you're right. You look up and down the schedule, you look at the quarterbacks they're playing. You look back at 2021 when they played their murderous row quarterbacks. Didn't go too well, so at least to start the season. But I have faith that this team is Tokyo drifting, slowly turning the corner, and they're going to get to, I'll go over 8.5. I think they get to 9 wins, honestly, just because I think the defense holds their water, carries their water. I think that the offensive line will have the up and downs, just like Sam Howell have his ups and downs. But I do think this defense is going to be strong enough to keep us in games. And at that point, it'll just be about, can Eric Bieniemy scheme up something? Can Sam Howell make a play or two in the third or fourth quarter, second half of a game to get them over the top? And I think that I'd go 8.5 wins. I'll give them 9 wins on this season, 9 and 8.
Tokyo Drift,
probably a 7 seed in the playoffs.
Wasn't Tokyo Drift that movie starring Jamin Davis in a neighborhood? He's a nice guy. I like Jamin. Yeah. He's dumb, but nice guy.
Well done. All right. For those that live under a rock and didn't know, the Burgundy Zone's on every Monday and Thursday. Fellas, you guys are the best, and I appreciate you giving me a little time today.
We're not as good as you, Doug. You're the best.
Man. The pleasure is all ours.
Too. I love that hat.
The pleasure is all ours. Yeah. That is a fresh hat.
Yeah. Doug's hat game is one of the best in the world.
He gets the chef's kiss.
CB Surf Shop, they make the best right here.
Yeah, I was about to say it's nice. I don't know what it is, but I like it.
All right, fellas, appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Appreciate you having us on.